forgiveness and transformation, how does that work? Do we forgive easily? And if we don't forgive easily, is it because we think we're letting people off of something that they did that really insulted our idea of what's right and what's wrong? And in that case, is it only, and is this the only reason that we don't forgive ourselves? Because we're supposed to always have forgiveness given to us, not given for ourselves, by ourselves. And this is it, because if you keep holding on to something like that, then your hands are full, your heart's full, your brain's full. There's no room for any other thought, there's no room for any other transformation. And the formation of trance is a state of being that forgiveness envelops quite beautifully. So we were having a chat off air, as we usually do, and we started discussing Ho'oponopono, which is the Hawaiian Huna medicine, shamanism, and way of belief that is all surrounded by forgiveness. But it's a forgiveness that actually allows you to know that it's the energy you're letting go. You're not telling someone that it's okay, you can come and stand on me with your tackety boots anytime you want to. No, it's a case of, I'm not letting you rent space in my house anymore. The door is open, you have exited, and it's gone. And basically now there's a way to flow through. Now that's not to say that everybody's not human and that every so often we're not going to be going, I can't do this, don't do this to me. And, it happens. We're human. We're also a Western culture. And that is a big thing too. But the thing is, there's magic in that forgiveness. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about the idea that when we open the door and let stuff out, when we let stuff fall from our hands, put it down because we're carrying it for someone else, or we don't need to carry it anymore, and we can transform the energy. Now, that energy can be anything from addictive energy to anger, jealousy, and maybe just on occasions, may. And I know somebody who's in this room who knows a lot about that may energy, so we're going to get into that later. However, let's introduce everybody first. Willie, let's start with you.
Thank you, Leslie. My name is Willie Nicol. I'm a personal development and transformation coach, following a career in the police service and corporate security. And I use all the experience and skills I learned there, along with my coaching training in NLP, hypnotherapy, and life coaching, to help other people with their, what we call in Scotland, stuff. The things that they perhaps keeping them stuck or are preventing them getting the results they want. So I'm a helper, facilitator, whatever you want to call it, for people who are struggling to sort things out on their own.
Thank you. Tanys.
Yeah, my name is Tanys Coughlin. I'm the founder of the Twillo Lifestyle Community, Twillo Lifestyle Academy. I am a Reiki Master, Celtic Shamanic High Priestess, Crystal Master. I do stuff, like Willie said, we do stuff. So yeah, I'm thrilled to be talking about forgiveness because that is a big thing that I help my clients with and help them transform their energy through forgiveness, through energy work, through tools and crystals and that sort of thing to help them transform. So thank you for having me today.
Thank you. Angela.
Hi, I'm Angela Daye from Inner Pathways, and unlike Willie, I help people deal with their stuff, unlike Tanys, by using my stuff to deal with their stuff. I think it's a whole stuff thing. So yeah. So I use kinesiology, I use hypnotherapy, I use coaching, and I wrap it all up in a pretty bow and deal with whatever's going on to help blockages from help things that are holding people back from doing what they want to do, what they want to achieve in life, and all that noise going on in their heads, and just help them just to quiet it or in worst case scenarios, kick it out. Because sometimes it's living free, as we've said already, living free in your house, in your head, and it doesn't need to be there. So let's not allow it to fester and build and become this big thing. So yeah, let's get rid of the things and the stuff and move forwards.
And I'm Leslie Marsh, and I too am all about knocking the stuffing out of the stuff by using different modalities and different ways. I would call it an holistic approach that we all do, actually, because what we're doing collectively is we're using language, we're using storytelling, we're using different modalities to allow you to minimize your stuff and exit it out the back or round the side or in the air. Maybe a fire ceremony, when it's safe to do so, can help eliminate the stuff. But just actually letting go. Oh my goodness, what a concept. Somebody, for a while there, that film with that song, oh, that was really ring-dinging my stuff. And I was like, let it go, let it go. Why do I keep hearing this? Let it go. But it's a case of we all really need to learn how to let it go, because if we didn't mither so much, if we didn't hold on to stuff so much, basically it wouldn't get to fester. And basically in Scotland, when things are festering, it's like having an abscess with no egress at all. And it's just going to get sore, and then it's going to get fusty, and then it's going to get poisonous, and then it can kill anything that's good about life. So this is why we collectively want you and us, because, we have to let things go too.
Mm-hmm.
We have to realize that it's okay to put it down, to lay it at the side and say, that's enough. Now, thinking about the time of year that we're at, and this is coming out in November, so this will be post-Halloween, or Samhain, as we call it, on occasions. Basically, there's a thing that we're taught to do at Crossroads, or should I say taught not to do at Crossroads, and that is to not pick anything up. Because at Crossroads is a place where people throw their stuff away. It could be that somebody's bought somebody's warts. Now we're going back a little bit in time here, but it could be that somebody's bought somebody's warts and they've taken the wee baggie of stuff where they've bought the warts and they've thrown it away at Crossroads, because Crossroads are magic places. So they've actually let it go in a physical manner. And that possibly is the secret to allowing ourselves to let things go, which is where fire ceremonies, etc. come in. But we were also talking about the Ho'oponopono and the prayer, which is the simplest thing, that when you really use it, I'm sorry, forgive me, I love you, thank you. Say that to yourself in the mirror. It's amazing what happens, especially once you get past the whole, what am I doing here? Why is it, I'm feeling embarrassed now. What is this crap that I'm doing? This is just silly. Because we're taught that these things don't work. So what does everybody else do? Do you do mirror work? Tanys, I know you will.
Yeah. Yeah, I've done a fair share of it, of course, and still do as things come up. It was very transformative for me going forward. When I first started my journey of, you start and you, for me anyway, grew up, with my own baggage and all of that stuff, and started to go down this path of healing and journeying and all of that. And I remember the first few times I did it in the mirror, I just sobbed. It was because it's all that energy that I'd been pushing down for years. It had to come up and get processed. And it was the most rewarding thing when one day I was washing my hands and I looked in the mirror and I went, oh, I kind of like you. And I went, wow, where did that come from? Okay, it's working. So for personal stuff, for sure. I actually work with my clients with it a lot, because you can actually feel where you're holding that dense energy. if it's with somebody. So I'll often have people close their eyes, go into like a very relaxed state, and then picture somebody that they need to do some work with in terms of releasing. And when they do that, then I ask them to do a body scan, and they scan with their mind through their body, looking for those areas of tension. And that's usually where they're holding that dense energy related to the situation. So then I have them keep that person's face in mind and repeat the Ho'oponopono. And I would say 9 out of 10 times it releases as you go through. You may have to do it longer, of course, or multiple times, but 9 out of 10 times you will see a difference in that tension by doing the Ho'oponopono. And it's because it's releasing that dense energy that's stuck in that spot. So for myself, I have had a lot of success with that in my own stuff, my own baggage. And I've also seen great transformation with clients using the same sort of thing. So for me, the Ho'oponopono is one of my key tools that I use a lot.
And
for sure.
to say this, I know, don't do the Michael Caine thing, but not a lot of people know that NLP is based on Ho'oponopono and the premises, the pillars of that belief system, which is actually evident in submodalities, because exactly as you said, we hold our stuff in different places in our bodies. And when we get people to say, you know, Willie, Angela, you know what I'm talking about as well, because you've done NLP, you know NLP. And when you're doing a submodality, where do you feel that? Where is that? Point to it. Tell me where it is. And then it becomes a thing that is existentially allowed to exit the body, be seen, and go from there. Willie, do you find submodalities useful?
Very much so. One kind of allegory I'm thinking about is back in the day, you used to spring clean, where when the better weather came in after the winter, you would chuck out all your old stuff, all the broken stuff, all the things you'd cluttered up your house with. And there are people in the world who make a living out of decluttering. It will help you declutter and spring clean. But the thought occurs to me, have we ever spring cleaned what's inside us, what's inside our head? Have we decluttered all the crap that's in there? Right? No, we tend to hold on to it. So any old resentments, anger, bitterness, whatever it is, we hold on to it because it's almost like that, what is it? Hold on to your wrath to keep it warm. Can't remember what the actual phrase is.
Nursing your ire.
Nursing your ire to keep it warm, right? So I was discussing it with another coach quite some time ago, and he's, and you know who this is, Liz, he's very heavily into Hawaiian culture. And I came up with the idea that if you have some negative emotion like anger or bitterness or guilt or whatever, it's almost like having a tea bag, which is inside your body, and it leaks poison out and negative stuff out. And if that's doing that in your body, and this is obviously a comparison or a metaphor, it can't be good for you. So the thing is to get the tea bag and chuck it out. Let it go, as you say, so it can no longer adversely affect you. And I've used that kind of analogy with clients. So what you're holding on to is that a tea bag leaking poison into your body. And eventually they get the idea. I said, well, what shall we do? What do you do with a used tea bag? You throw it out, put it in the bin. Exactly. So that's one way I approach it.
Angela.
That kind of brings up an example that I had this week actually with someone. They were holding on to something. It was starting to manifest actually into a physical thing. And she used the analogy of it's like a rock in my shoe. It's like constantly there irritating. So I told her that she needed to put all of that resentment into a small rock, put it in her shoe, and then go and take it out purposefully with intent and go and throw it in the water because the water's cleansing. And she did that. She felt quite a bit better after she had done that. So much like the burning ceremony you were talking about, Leslie. It's a cleansing ceremony of sorts that she did, also involving natural things and elements and all of that, which is, I find that can be quite helpful because you're symbolically doing it and you're also doing it with intention and thought.
Angela.
I think the intention part is so key to all of this. If we intend to hold on to the pain and the anguish and everything else, even if we think it's the only option open to us, it's still our intention to hold on to that. It's mine. It defines me. I get to be angry at the world because I'm carrying this. And as Willie said, that's just poisoning your body. You don't need to hold on to that soggy tea bag. And actually, if you think about all that pain and anger as a soggy tea bag, you're probably going to say, do you know what? No, I don't want this. It's kind of got a bit moldy and it's a bit, oh no. So there's that aspect to it as well. The Ho'oponopono prayer as well. What I love about it is that it's 4 simple statements and you can say them in whatever order you want. And I've noticed myself when I've been working with it, the order changes depending on what's going on and what I'm working through. And I did a training maybe about a year ago, and it was a 5th statement was added in. And I don't know if it's part of the original or not. And it was about I forgives me. And it's a slightly different angle to it, totally different energy, but it just up levels it so much more from my perspective. And I thought that it was a key thing to do. And the training I did wasn't a case of using it with clients. It was a case of using it on ourselves as we're working with clients, because we're humans too. And when we come across a client who is dealing with something that's maybe at odds with our values, or they're dealing with something that we don't understand or can't comprehend, or it's triggering us, for want of a better word.
Yeah.
What this training talked about was for us to use that prayer to clear what's going on for us, to then allow us to hold the space better for our clients. And once that kind of sunk in for me, it wasn't about teaching my clients to use the 4 or the 5 statements. It was about using it for myself to go deeper with my clients, which has been such a powerful thing to do and clear out all of that rubbish, all that stuff, stick it in the moldy tea bag and chuck it in the bin.
I think that's part of the issue, is that people can identify with the issue so much so they forget who they are, or that they are actually their own person. And they've just had this in their face for so long, it's become part of them. It's almost like their identical twin that they have to, they're conjoined with all the time. And part of the thing with it that I love particularly is talking to my universal mind as if it were another person. It's a part of me, but it's a part of me that has elements of strangeness and kind of unfamiliarity on occasions, which is quite good because, I forget consciously, as we all do to varying degrees, just how powerful our universal minds can be. And when we stop trying to deal with everything by ourselves and just say, okay, I'm leaving this to you because I know you can do this. And if, you're going to let me know somehow, and we're going to make this arrangement together so that when I'm having my cornflakes in the morning or when I'm having my cup of coffee in the afternoon, a little voice is going to come into my head and say, this is the answer. Or you're going to make me notice something. And it's just going to be a case of, what happened there? Oh, wow, I've got it. But actually, your conscious mind hasn't got it. Your unconscious mind just went, here, there's a gift. On you go. Because I'm connected to like the collective consciousness of everything. But, your wee conscious mind just isn't going to take that too easily. So we'll just feed it to you when you need, but you have to ask. Because I'm just going to let you keep spinning your wheels all the time unless you actually stop and ask me if there's another way to do it. Which is why, of course, I absolutely love to trance. Because then me and my universal mind are like Morecambe and blooming wise, doing the happy dance down the road. It's amazing. It's like Snoopy doing a happy dance, and his wee mate, the birdie, Woodstock. So,
It
yeah.
must be a really interesting place in your head, Leslie.
Well,
I
you
think-
know that it is.
I think I'm quite happy I'm not in there.
Listen, sometimes I'm not in there either. So I just let you get on with it.
We are multidimensional beings. We work
Yeah,
on multiple
yeah.
dimensions.
I was reading something in a neuroscience thing today that actually inspired me to forgive myself and to forgive my teachers for not having the understanding of what was going on with the daydreaming. Because every report card, every teacher's meeting, Leslie would do much better at school if she would stop daydreaming. And yet now the neuroscientists are understanding that the hippocampus actually needs daydreaming. It's a required element for long-term memory because we keep our memories not just in one place, but all over the shop, in our heads, in our brains, in parts of our body. And that's how we can use these for anchors, particularly as well. So I'm sitting there thinking to myself all the time when I felt like, unseen, unheard, unworthy, because they told me I couldn't be taught. It was actually a case of they just didn't have the resources to teach me. I was getting very bored because, I score highly on the ADHD and I'm dyscalculate. So, maths was never going to happen. English, though, bleed me to it. Let me drink of that, no problem at all. Bottomless cup. So that released something as well that absolutely unaware was still hanging on to.
I find lately that's the kind of stuff that's coming up for a lot of people. Is this the childhood stuff that you're like, it's just coming into your awareness and you're like, oh, maybe that wasn't really serving me.
I think also there's a thing where in your 40s, things start to get released.
Yeah.
That it's almost like the secret acts. The what's it called, Willie? The security when you're not allowed to see things.
The Official Secrets Act.
Yeah, they officially, but you know how they're like 30 years passes and then they release documents of a certain age. And I think that actually, there's a thing that happens when you're in your 40s that you start, and that's when a lot of people who have been abused and suffer abuse start to actually get flashbacks. And you start to understand, and it becomes something. It becomes a problem because they're paying attention to it, and then they're hanging on to it because they suddenly realize that this happened. They'd forgotten about it because their universal mind had said, you don't need to remember this now. We're blocking this, and then now you're old enough to take this. It won't always happen, but it's around about that age that they've discovered that a lot of people will start to have flashbacks about things that happened in the past when they were children. And forgiving that can be a tall order, really, because there's a lot of insult there. Not just the you're useless type of insult, but the absolute insult of self, of identity, of being, of innocence. And that's where the transformation comes in. Once you can actually say, that happened, there was absolutely nothing I could do about it to stop it because I was too young. I was not in a position to do that. Neither did I invite it. That was someone else's wound.
Yeah.
I think there's a part to it as well that even if the brain or the conscious or the subconscious or the universal mind or whatever you want to call it, even if that doesn't bring the flashbacks and bring forward these memories, there can still be that echo of something.
Yeah.
And a lot of traditional coaching and counseling methods tend to pick at the scab and let's delve into it and let's go into it. And I think the beauty of what some of us do is that we don't need to pick at the scab. the beauty of what I do with kinesiology is we don't even need to give it a name. We don't need to say that incident that happened when you were whatever age. We just need to know there's something there. And we can release that without going in and reliving it and digging it back up again. And yeah, I'll bring my little spade out. We don't need to go back in and dig it back up again. We just need to know that there's something we've got to release. Let's just let it go.
Mhm.
With or without the Disney Queen behind me. It is that piece of allowing it to release without using your tea bag analogy again. You don't need to open the tea bag to know that it's wet, mushy tea leaves. Let's just get rid.
Yeah, well, brewing does, you brew a tea bag too long, it becomes something ridiculous. I know. My mother used to put a pot on in the morning from my father getting up 5:30 in the morning. It was the same teapot when I got up at 7:30. I can tell you there were spoons that melted in that stuff. So the more that you brew it, the more that you steep it, the more that you
reinforce it, don't you?
Yeah, you're actually, it's seeping into your very being. And a lot of the times we have to give it a form to allow people to actually let it go, like Tanys' stone in her shoe.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea of if a name pops up into your head, you can say, okay, did that person hurt me or did I hurt that person? Then you go and write it on a piece of paper, and any other names that come up, write on a piece of paper and go in a wee fire ceremony in the garden.
Yeah.
And I don't think you need to assign blame. Did that person hurt me? Did I hurt that person? Is there pain there?
Yeah. But it's one of those things that we occasionally need to understand which end of the scale we're on. Because when it comes to self-forgiveness, because we sometimes forget about the people that we hurt on the way. That it was, it might be that we were retaliatory in our action. But actually, was the retaliation necessary?
I'm beginning to wish I hadn't said anything about tea bags. Because
I'm just
another
wanting a
thought
cup of tea now.
came to me. As you said, your mum made your dad's tea at 5:30 in the morning, and by the time you got to it at 7:30, it would be, as we say, stewed, right? And not very pleasant. So it's almost like if we leave these things too long stewing, right, they become unpleasant. It's time to do some, i.e., get a fresh tea bag or a fresh pot of tea. Because, like the tea bag inside, if you let it stew, fester's another word, or get worse without addressing it. And as Tanys has said, this can lead to actual physical problems.
Yeah.
And I try to explain that to people, maybe not using the tea bag analogy, that if you don't address your stuff, let go, get rid, whatever way you want to put it, it will come back to bite you.
Oh, yeah.
It will come back to make you unwell, whether physically and or mentally, because anger and resentment and jealousy and guilt and envy and all these negative emotions, right, they're not good for us. I have some male clients who are very logical. Right? They want to know how things work. If we do hypnotherapy, do you feel better? Yeah, I do feel better, thanks. How did that work? I'm not going to explain it to you. You have a result here, you feel better. But what I say to them is, okay, you came here for anger, bitter, whatever the hell it was. Have any of these negative emotions ever made a situation better? And the logical answer to that for the logical clients is, well, no. Exactly. So why do you persist in this course of conduct? And that's for the logical people. They think, oh yeah, I get that now. As opposed to, oh, I feel better. I accept that. Thank you very much.
It's a bit like Andrew with his crutches yesterday.
Yes.
Because basically he was hanging on to something, an idea that he believed was true. And he'd actually got it the wrong way round. And once he turned the crutches around the right way, suddenly the pain was gone. So, you know, it's one of the
I
things.
must have missed this story.
Oh, yeah, I think
Yeah.
you did. He was using his crutches backwards, and if you look at the photograph that I took, you can actually see that he's using the crutches backwards. And it was only when we were coming out of the supermarket that he said that, you know, it was really sore and his hands were hurting and his forearms were hurting and he just had to keep going. And I looked at him and suddenly realized what was going on. I said, well, if you actually turned them around the right way, it might be more comfortable for you. But all I got was, why did you not tell me that before? And I said, because I didn't look before.
Mm.
You had to tell me that it was hurting before I would look. Because then I would make the assumption that, you know, everything was fine until you said that it wasn't. Because we
There
tend,
comes a point when there is hurt or there is pain, right? It's like knocking your head off a brick wall. It's great when you stop.
yeah,
And some people continue we're back to Einstein's theory of madness, doing the same thing over and over again. I hit your head off a wall. And I'm pointing here because there is a wall beside me. It's great when you stop. But so if there is pain and hurt, let's stop what we're doing and try and identify the source of it, the cause of it, whether it be a negative emotion or a retained negative belief or whatever, and said, is that serving you? No, it's not. Is it causing you pain? Yes, it is. So what should we do? Should we try and get rid of it? Oh, that's an idea. So the pain thing is good because it identifies that something's not right and we need to do something about it.
and the other thing is, though, the big, excuse the term, kahuna in the situation is belief. Do you believe that you're worthy of forgiveness? Do you believe that you can let it go? Do you believe that this is something that has attached itself to you by you allowing it to come in and sit there with you? And once you actually understand, once we all understand that this power of belief, it's like Andrew with his crutches, the only time that he understood that there was something going on and he believed that he was using them correctly, changing that belief was easy because the pain was instantly taken care of and it was a practical, logical thing to do. But when it's a belief that somebody has instilled into you a long time ago when you were very, very young, it goes deep under the surface and it sits there waiting like a toad under a stone.
I think
So
the
I use a nicer analogy than that.
Well, yeah, but I'm certainly using that because I know that you can't make pictures like this. So, you know.
Use the word allow there. Sorry, Angela.
That's right.
Use the word allow there, Leslie. Give yourself permission to let it go.
Yes.
Tell yourself you're worthy of letting go. I'm allowing myself to let this shit go. I am giving myself permission to let go of this stuff that's not serving me or hurting me or giving me pain. And that it's my choice. I'm allowing myself to do it. I'm permitting myself to do it. And that's very powerful because you're the one that's deciding, not someone else telling you, just let it go.
That's the premise, the essence of empowerment. Self-empowerment.
Yeah.
You have to allow yourself to empower yourself too.
But I think it's that analogy that I think it's one of these kind of examples in a lecture hall that if you're given a cup of water or whatever to hold, it's not very heavy, but if you're told to stand and hold it for 2 hours with your arm outstretched, suddenly it gets heavy, and all of a sudden it's heavier and heavier, and you don't think you can hold it up any longer. So it's okay to put it down. You didn't have to hold it for the rest of your life, or drink it, or do something with it to change it so you're not having that problem. Bring it in closer, acknowledge it, put it down.
But that's the interesting thing as well. We're talking about the second part of this subject is the transformational thing, is the idea that you've got that cup and what you're being asked to do is hold the water. Really, because you're not supposed to spill the water or something. I think that's what happens. Basically, if you drink the water, you're never going to spill it. You're going to piss it out occasionally, but you're never going to spill it. But in the meantime, it's going to have transformed a whole lot of stuff inside you. And the idea of what you have to carry and what you can, excuse the pun, let go.
Well, the transformation is that you let it go. How do you feel now? I worked with a lady who wanted to lose weight, and we did some work. And she came in one day and said, I feel good. I feel really good. I said, how do you feel exactly? She said, I feel lighter. Now, this wasn't because she'd lost a few pounds of weight. This is because mentally and energetically, she was lighter. And you could see it in her face. Her face looked lighter. She was smiling more. She was happier. So she'd get rid of excess pounds physically and also a weight. I said to her, you've got a weight off your shoulders. She said, yes, I have. Right. So she'd allowed herself to go down a path of losing weight physically and also transforming the way she looked at food and eating and whatever it was. And her whole outlook changed. And she became physically and mentally and energetically lighter.
It's amazing with some of my clients. I've had them come in and we'll start off with the mirror work. So I have like a handheld mirror. I have them look at it, look at themselves, and we do some of the Ho'oponopono on self. When they're doing the mirror work, I actually add in 2 other statements: the I'm worthy and I am enough, because that helps them to move and feel worthy of letting go for the other stuff. And then when we go through some of the other work, I get them to look in the mirror on the way, like before they leave. And you can really see a difference. Even the ones that are not all that tuned into the energy of it, they see a difference and their face is lighter. It's brighter when they look at themselves. And it's wonderful to see those kind of transformations. And it's all about releasing that energy, like you were saying, Willie.
I must say that the one statement that I use, particularly in workshops, is I am loved.
Yeah.
Because it's the one thing that we don't say to ourselves. And when we're looking in the bathroom mirror in the morning, what we're doing is we're looking at what we're doing. We're not looking at ourselves. We're not looking at ourselves in our eyes. We're not seeing ourselves. We're there because it's perfunctory. It's an ablution. So basically, when you sit there and you actually look, and that's where we get the idea of this is silly, this is embarrassing, and we start to squirm because we're doing something that we're always told is vanity. We're not supposed to do that. That's for someone else to tell us. It's not for us to understand for ourselves. And it's amazing how many people will squirm like a worm on a hook and give up because they can't. This is silly. This is illogical. I don't really, what's going on with this. But the ones who do it, and I will say to people, keep doing it until you get an emotional and a physiological reaction. So basically, when you cry.
That's right.
Most of my clients are men, right? During a program, I'll say, well, who do you love? And you'll get the usual answers: my wife, my kids, my parents, whatever it is. And my next question to them is, do you love yourself? And that generally provokes a stunned silence. When was the last time you told yourself that you loved yourself? And most men, as you say, Leslie, will be very uncomfortable with that concept. And my riposte would be, well, if you don't love yourself, how do you expect other people to love you? But they do love me. You know that, but do they? Yes, they love them. Parents, kids, wives, partners, whatever. I said, well, and I do this with male clients. Stand in front of the mirror and tell yourself that you love yourself. And they look at me aghast. The only thing I have credibility as an ex-police officer that said, I've done it. And if I can do it, trust me, you can do it. And it's quite transformative. It's quite changing when they come back and say, you know what? I feel a lot better now, thanks. That I have accepted my worthiness, as you say, Tanys, or my ability to open up and say, yeah, I can look myself in the mirror in the morning while I'm shaving and say, you know what, you've done a lot of bad shit, Willie, but actually, you're okay now. I maybe not say I love you, Willie, but I do feel that comfort, that weight, that lighter, that burden lifted by saying, I love myself. what on earth is wrong with saying that? And if I can get my male clients to say that, anyone can do it.
And it's
Well,
interesting as well what we'll do with the critique that we'll take from other people that we will not give ourselves. Same as we will tell other people that we love them and what we love about them. And I think that there's a lot of leeway there when we say that, well, you know, they love me. Of course they love me. Actually, they're giving you a lot of leeway because of that emotion. So they don't tell you the bits that, you know, you don't love about yourself. Because actually, it's a good idea that you do that and you understand that yourself anyway. That we look at ourselves and say, yeah, I can be really hard on me sometimes. And it's, you know, it's basically a habit that I got into because I got so used to hearing it from other people that I started to believe it. And of course, once we start believing something, well, it's true.
I've caught friends of mine, you know, when they, with the self-deprecating comments, oh, that was stupid or whatever. And I just look at them, I'm like, don't talk about my friend that way. Right? Because they're talking about themselves in a way that nobody else would say to them. Because they're being so self-deprecating that it's like, no, don't talk about my friend that way, right? It all comes back to programming, right? And how they were brought up. I've had clients that were not even able to look at themselves in the mirror. I had one that like ran away when I asked her to do it. She stood there and when nope, can't do that. So, and that's part of the healing journey though, right? Accepting that stuff as it comes up and working towards releasing.
We can often be very, very, very critical of ourselves, negative self-talk, whatever you want to call it. There are times when we berate ourselves in the manner that if someone else had done it, well, in my case, I'd have punched them in the mouth, right?
Yeah.
How dare you talk to me like that? But
Exactly.
we talk to ourselves like that. So another thing I do is I look, well, what do you love about yourself, Willie? Well, I won't go into all my many attributes, right? But what are things you're not so keen on? And then identify that and then work on those. I don't think I'll ever get to a point where I could be completely happy and completely in love with everything to do with me. But once you've ticked off some of the boxes and absolutely get rid of that negative self-talk, because if you wouldn't accept it from someone else, why on earth would you accept it from yourself?
But we're always a work in progress. And that's the point that we have to remember. It's progress, not recycling, which we tend to do. We tend to recycle a lot of stuff. And we've got all these thoughts in our heads and they just keep going round like a spin dryer. Sometimes they'll go fast and
For as long as you let them, though.
as long as you let them. And all you have to do is turn it off. And that sounds easy to say, but it's the actual thought of doing it that sometimes is the scary part, because if I'm not thinking that, what am I going to think?
See, if you're not thinking it, it can get nice and quiet and chilled out in your head.
Yeah.
It's lovely and quiet in here. But it's interesting, really. And I do appreciate that usually men do find these things a little bit tougher. I did have a client maybe a few years ago now that it wasn't even mirror work. I didn't even ask her to do it with a mirror. It was a statement, I love myself. She just had to say it out loud. She could do it with her eyes shut if she wanted to, while we were holding some acupressure points. And she couldn't even say the sentence. We got the I, and then it just went blank. So thankfully, with the techniques that I've got, with holding the points that little bit longer, she eventually got the sentence out. It wasn't joined up words. It was very spaced out to allow her to get to that point of saying it. And that took quite a long time to get through because she didn't believe she was loved. She didn't believe she should love herself and all of those aspects with it. And it is that point until we love ourselves. Not how can somebody else love us, but if we can't love ourselves, how can we love other people? If we're not actually experiencing that emotion and that thought and that process, it doesn't work. And I think with the comment about letting it go, I tend to use that in a roommate in your head, all these thoughts, all these feelings, all these experiences that we then dwell on and dwell on and dwell on. It's like initially it's walking across the grass. You do it often enough, it becomes a path. You do it often enough, it becomes a 6-lane motorway. We don't need that. So let it go. But how do you let go of a 6-lane motorway? Well, you need to start digging it up, and plant some trees, and divert somewhere else. We don't need to keep paving it and keep resurfacing it. That's not helping anybody, and it's definitely not helping ourselves.
My trolls just come back into the picture. I have, when I was doing my training in Glastonbury, at one point we were doing this self situations. And I went on a journey and I found that I had a troll who loved to eat the negative feelings. And for a while, he was a very portly person because he was gobbling up some stuff. But at the same time, it was interesting to me that I was able to make and connect with this energy and allow that energy to do what it was doing because it was slightly separated from me. It was something that was coming to do the act of eating the negative stuff. I didn't have to sit there and pick over it and kind of, do I want that one? I put that one there. Do I want that one? I put that one there. And I think that decluttering is another way of putting it because, you have the boxes. So keep, throw away, give away to charity kind of thing. So it depends on the beliefs, values, and ideas of the person that we're dealing with to a certain extent. But sometimes we have to be brave enough and unconcerned enough to actually tell people how we do it.
Mhm.
And some, I come out with this troll situation. What? Eh? The hell?
Yeah, I might not use that one, but I like the fact that you do.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things that whatever works for you, that is safe and psychologically secure. As long as you're not just littering the place about so that you're going to fall over it quite shortly and then you're going to get it back again. All you have to do is keep feeding your troll, whichever, it could be a big recycle, it could be a big bin, it could be a big fire, it could be, a truck that's going to take it away, a bin lorry, whatever.
I'm going to remember that troll thing. I think that's great. I think in some ancient cultures, when someone died, they employed someone to be a sin eater.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yes, I've heard
this
that.
dude would come in and be paid to eat, metaphorically, the sins of the dearly departed, so they can now pass into the afterlife free from sin. So if we get the troll analogy, you think invent a troll in your head and they'll eat all your negative emotions, right? Because negative emotions, it's a question of mind over matter. Because you don't mind because they don't matter. And I use that analogy because you decide if all these negative emotions matter to you. And have they ever made a bad situation better? No, they haven't. So why do you hold on to them? I don't know. Well, how about you get a sin eater or a troll, or you get a big bin bag and just ditch them? How about that? And you can see the logical men's of the light bulb coming on over the head.
I struggle with the concept of negative emotions though, because we're the ones that are putting a positive or a negative on them.
Okay then.
But this is it.
They're lower vibration.
Change the word decision to choice. They're actually, for me, interchangeable. Because when you're making a decision, you're taking a choice. You're making a choice. When you're making a choice, you're making a decision because you're choosing something. You're actively choosing. And that's a deciding factor. So if we say to someone, it's your decision, they can, but then if you actively say, and it's one of the things that I like to use with people is how are you choosing to believe that? And suddenly, I'm not choosing, that's not choice. I don't choose to do that. Yes, you do. Because that's where you go every time that question comes up or that situation comes up. you choose to react rather than respond. It's like me with technology. I make a choice on occasion. Yes, I see you. I knew it was coming in there.
As Leslie's tech support,
Oh,
she
yeah,
makes that
it's
choice
ugly.
regularly.
Oh, it's ugly. But at the same time, that is something that I don't see as a conscious choice. I don't see it as a conscious decision. And it's something that
I do like to remind you that it is, since you like to remind me of these
yeah, I
things now
know,
and again.
I know, but this is it. When I'm in that space, when I'm in that cul-de-sac, and it is a cul-de-sac, I forget to turn round. And I think that's it. We get so blinkered, so totally involved. And sometimes we don't even realize that what our beliefs and values are until somebody drops a stone on them and crushes our tootsies. Then they come out with a vengeance. And that's when the anger comes, that's when the grief comes, that's when the whole situation becomes something that it probably would never have been otherwise.
But then the anger, I think, can be a really powerful, positive emotion for you to process. Something's going on here.
Yeah.
What is it? How do I deal with it? Grief, just the same. If we're not grieving for something, are we really living? Because everything changes, everything moves. It's what we do with that grief.
Yeah, as long as we don't make it our postcode, it's okay. This is the whole thing with emotions, particularly anger and grief, etc. There's everything is different length of time for different people, and they will grieve in very different ways, and they'll get angry in very different ways, and they'll love in different ways. This is what's beautiful about the human beings, about the whole human race kind of thing. We never, not one of us does the same thing the same way, really, because we don't have the same experiences. But it's the experiences that actually are the ingredients of the big teapot where we're masking the tea. And I think that's a great analogy as well, is that tea masks and we mask our feelings for a long, long time while it's brewing, while it's steeping, while it's in there. And unless we put fresh water in, it's never diluting.
Yeah.
It was interesting. I had a conversation with, I think he was a Kenyan bishop within the Anglican Church. And I was talking about a situation I was in, and this is a good decade plus ago. And I was very frustrated, and I was feeling anger towards a particular situation. And he told me, but there's a righteousness to anger. So sit with it, understand it, live with it for a little while, and move through it. You don't have to stay in the anger, but actually anger is just as valid emotion as love, as peace, as hope, as whatever else the positive ones are. We need to have the full spectrum, because if we get rid of all those ones that are a bit yucky and a bit icky, how are we ever going to really enjoy the nice ones and the joy and the happy and the peace?
Yeah, that's why shamanism for me is such a beautiful thing, because we are allowed to have those emotions, and not just to have them, but experience them and show them.
Yeah.
You know, as long as we don't go and kill somebody or something like that, then, you know, but that's just it. It's a case of they're valid. They're a valid part of life. They're a valid part of understanding that when we're laughing, we can be crying with laughter, or we can be crying in pain or grief. But
And it's okay to feel more than one.
Yeah,
one given
and it
time
can be,
too, right?
you know, especially if you
Mixed.
bang your elbow or your big toe. There's a whole kind of how stupid and silly was that to do, and there goes that word, and how, you know, that's a ridiculous thing to happen, and the best thing to do is really laugh it off. But occasionally, what you want to do is really kick something, and then just make it worse. So there's
It's having the emotions and then working out what are the actions on the back of the emotion.
Yeah.
So that emotion of, I'm so frustrated with myself, I want to lash out, and then choosing not to lash out is fine, but be aware of that need or that feel of, I want to lash out.
So it's like a runaway horse with a jockey on it. So you've got the emotion that's kind of bolting. Then you've got a thought that's trying to jump on the back and say, whoa, hey, whoa, rein it in. Just, or give it its head and let it go.
But then the further
emotions
you
are
take
really-
it away, the further you move away from who your true self is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And emotions
sometimes
are
it's
really
like
just a
that's
signpost, right? About it, they're supposed to spur you into action in some way. They're like a signpost going, hey, pay attention to me. You need to change something. Or you need to do something if it's a love or a joy, right? Celebrate. This is love or joy. It's like a motivation into some action, really, is what they are. And we're supposed to experience the whole gamut of emotion. We're here to learn what it's like to be human. And emotions are an integral part of being human.
The interesting
So
thing is that when we do get to that point, it's the fear of what happens after the transformation of the situation.
Yeah.
That makes
Just
people
because it's
step back
unknown.
again. Yeah. But the thing is that as human beings, we thrive on the unknown. That's how we became top of the chain thing.
But the unknown then is outside the comfort zone. So is that existing or thriving?
Or is it not so much the comfort zone, but as Mr. Bandler puts it, the familiarity zone, because we like the things that are familiar. So when we see someone who's losing their nut over something, we understand that that's familiar. It's like something that Andrew said to me at one point when it came to Fred West's children, who was a murderer person, the serial killer. He said at one point that one of the children had gone to another person's house for dinner and saw that there was a different way of living, a different experience round a dinner table. It doesn't have to be a serial killer, it could be anything. For a long time, I didn't understand how some people wanted to spend so much time with their families.
I think you still question me on that one, don't you?
Yeah, I do. But even before, well, particularly before when I was identifying as the vet nurse and not myself, it was a case of we had another auxiliary with us, and she was always going off with her mum to do shopping and do this, and I'm like, going, why? Why would you do that? What is it? Totally alien to me to do that. But that is just my experience in life. That's all I can go on. I'm a little bit better about it now because I've experienced how other people do it. However, there's still part of me that is on the outside looking in to a certain extent because that's my familiarity zone.
It's the experience, isn't it? We live on our experiences. We make predictions based on our experiences as to it's always been this way, it's always going to be that way. And actually coming away from that can be painful, can be scary, but boy, can it be rewarding.
But is it scary or is it anticipation? Is it that flutter of excitement? Because there's it's just words. The feeling is the same. It's just the word we use. That scares me, or like getting.
But again, is it the emotion we add to the thought?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And we can transform that emotion by just looking at it from a different perspective. But if it's all we know, then nothing's going to transform. But what we have to do is learn to forgive ourselves for those little foibles. And if we do step back and get lost somewhere, well, if it's a cul-de-sac, there's always one way out. You're not getting walled up in it unless you choose to pull yourself in there by yourself. So when we think about forgiveness, and it's a massive subject.
I'm sure we could keep talking for about a week.
We probably could, but we won't.
Big
Because I think that the one thing that we've got to do is realize that what we're doing is we're wanting to be adding a snowflake onto the ledge of the avalanche and allow that to fall, or build the snowball and let it roll and let it gather momentum in people's heads and people's minds and people's hearts. To understand that We're not telling you what to do. We're just giving you an idea of our experiences and what yours could be, should you choose to look at them differently. And with that, I think I'm going to close the session. Forgive me if I'm cutting you off. But time is something that they say heals all wounds, but also what will happen is if you hang on to something long enough, time can stop while the rest of the world goes forward. So keep up, go along for the ride. And if you decide that you need something, allow yourself to do that. And forgive yourself if it doesn't quite work out.